Yeah, I think it's just because the book goes for a primal aspect of it.
Right.
Path of the Bear, all that jazz. So I think that's what it is.
Path of the Elks, where it's at. Anyway, all right. So
Wait, Path of the what?
Path of the Elk.
Oh, I didn't hear elk. I heard Path of the Elves, and I was like,
Yep. Oh, you're
there's
not
an
familiar
elk.
with the Path of the Elves? Whoa. No.
I was so confused.
Yeah. So we're recording, but I have to
No, I understand.
fix my hair. Apparently, I have to say it loud so that you don't fucking run off on a tangent. Waste 5 minutes.
Yeah, that just happened. Anyways, welcome to Bastions and Basilisks, since he's fixing his hair. This video will be on the Barbarian. We're going to go through the core class features and such like that. My name is Brandon.
I'm Kalvin.
And I figured since you were fixing your hair, I'd just start anyways.
That's fine. That's gonna be the funniest intro of yet.
Yeah, I kind of wasn't planning on starting it, but you fixing your hair kind of did it. Anyways, so the Barbarian, it gets a D12 for their health per Barbarian level. Their proficiencies are light and medium armor with shields. Their weapons are simple and martial weapons, so improvised weapons do not count. And if I'm correct, hand-to-hand combat.
Everybody's proficient in punchies.
Okay, see, I thought it wasn't.
Yeah, it's just everybody's proficient in punchy punch, but it's only 1 plus strength modifier, which is I think in the game I was playing in, the bard tried to run up and punch somebody after he saw my monk run up and punch somebody, and he has a -1 to his strength, so he actually punched somebody, hit them successfully, and did no damage.
That's impressive.
So
that's really impressive.
Yeah, and he did it again, and I'm like, why would you do it a second time?
Because his bard thinks he's doing something.
He's committed to being a. Anyway.
Their saving throws are strength and constitution. Like our last video where we're talking about the strength and constitution being a very big thing.
Mm-hmm.
They get 2 skills. You can either pick animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, or survival. Honestly, again, depending on how you want to go with it. I
think perception is always a good skill.
It never is a dump stat in my opinion.
It's never. It's like if you can get perception, you should always get perception.
You don't want to be.
That's how 90. Yeah, that's how 90% of that's how 90% of the bad shit happens is.
Yeah,
you're not seeing it. And the other 10% is other players opening their mouths.
Yeah. Oh, DM, you should do this. You know what? I'm gonna fucking kill your party for that. Anyways, they get their rage ability. You get the following abilities if you aren't wearing heavy armor. Note, I never read that before. I always figured that you could still have it. The first ability, you have advantage on strength checks and saving throws. So if you ever need a strength check or saving throw, you get advantage while raging. When you make a melee, yeah, it actually is.
Because you rage and then I grapple.
And then I break your spine.
And then I use my bonus action to rage, my strength, my action to grapple you, and then my move action to walk off a cliff. Because I have the hit points and the bludgeoning resistance to eat that.
I just imagine you took a single level.
Monks don't get it till like 4.
I'm trying to think of like this random ass ability where you get to float, levitate. Say you're a drow.
A drow.
You get to like just fall and then cast levitate right before you hit the ground.
If you can make that so that it's featherfall. Featherfall is a reaction spell, so that would be 10 times funnier.
What level is it? That's the thing.
Well, that's level 1.
Oh, then yeah, you can get magic initiate. You just exit
true.
and then
God, that's so funny. Be a human. Just variant human just for that. Just so you can. I grab. I walk off a cliff, and then I featherfall. I let you go. Bye.
Yeah, like you'd slowly fall with it, but hey, you got it. Just saying.
That's like how it. I think it was either the second or third Uncharted game. I got mad at an encounter, and essentially just was like hanging off the top of like the Tibetan mountains or something on a building, and people would come over to shoot at me and miss, and then they'd be like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Ha!" And so like literally everybody in that map, I just threw off the cliff because it just made me so angry. So there's just this puddle of people at the bottom of the mountains.
That's great.
Same motive. Or I mean, you could always do the push because the shove action is also a strength check.
Yeah, and you wouldn't need to.
So you could shove, but I think it's more dramatic to do the Rock Lee. You know. Anyway.
When you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you gain a bonus to damage roll that increases as you gain levels as a barbarian. Shown in the rage damage column in the barbarian table. Note, I didn't know that directly with strength weapons. I thought it was all weapons. But again, that was something that I stated right before we started filming last video also.
Yeah.
So, like, there are things that I didn't know in this because I never incorporated rage damage for some reason. You do get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which I think everyone knows that. That's
everybody knows that. That is such a good,
impressive thing.
We got into a fight. My barbarian. I think we got into a fight with some fire giants, and I think I calculated that I took over 300 points of damage. Technically, would have taken over 300 points of damage in a fight.
Jeez.
At level 10, but because of my resistance, I only took like 150, but I also got healed a couple of times. Like I barely had any hit points, but like I ate a lot of damage in that fight. And like a fighter can't do that.
No, you can't.
A fighter can do a lot of damage, but a barbarian is pure fucking tank.
It's meant for that.
Yeah.
Now, while you are raging, you cannot cast any spells or concentrate on them. Oh. Okay, yeah. Sorry. I read the sentence backwards, so it made no sense to me.
Yeah.
Your rage lasts for a minute. Now, later on, it does indefinitely last. But if you're knocked unconscious, you haven't attacked someone or been attacked, it does end. And you can also end your rage as a bonus action, which I don't think any of you ever do.
Taken damage since then. You'll notice taken damage since then. So if I stab myself...
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I can keep my rage going.
If you magically don't hit someone, have someone slash you real quick, or just... Yeah, I mean, hell, you can literally have someone come up and then, like... you can have, like, a character with a single pen. And, like, it's an improvised weapon. So it's just like, all right, just stab him for a single point. And then, like, that's damage. So you'll literally lose a single point.
Well, somebody could just punch you.
Yeah.
And as long as they don't have a -1 strength, they...
The bard hit you for 0 damage, but you're still, you know... Oh, wait, no, it says you have to take damage. So at least a 1 in strength.
Yeah, taken damage since then. And you can't, it's one of those, like, you divide by half, round up. So you would take a minimum of 1 damage. Yeah. As long as they have a strength modifier.
And, again, it depends, but you have only a number of rages, which is also in the... but you have to finish a long rest before you can enter rage again.
Yeah, but that goes up in a pretty solid...
I think it's like up to 5.
6. Actually, it's up to unlimited, technically, but...
Yeah, but...
I mean, it starts at 2, and then level 3 goes up to 3, and then 4 at level 6, and then that's probably one of the bigger... That's the biggest gap. Is then level 12 you go up to 5, and then level 17 you go up to 6.
This right here, this next ability is probably one of the most underrated things that is also with the monk, the unarmored defense.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's underrated.
I think a lot of people underrated, as in like people take it
I would
for
say
granted.
I think I think it's underappreciated, but I don't think it's underrated.
Yeah, undervalued.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize how useful unarmored defense is until you get plate armor and you're like, oh, I have disadvantage for this. Oh, I'm constantly making noise. Or like, you get studded leather armor. It's just 13 plus 2 maximum in your decks. So it's like you can't really get a high
12.
AC. But if you
studded leather's 12 plus decks. But yeah, you have a character. Yeah, but you have a character. You have like my Tabaxi Barbarian he got up to a 20 strength. I think he had like a 16 dex, and I think I was working on my constitution. I think he had a 16 con, so I had like a 16 or 17 AC. Which, I mean, depending on what you're fighting. When you're fighting giants, that's nothing, because they're like, I have a +10 to hit. But like when you're depending on what you're fighting,
it really helps. Also, you can still use a shield with this.
Yeah. So I mean, that's one of those things that you max out your dex, which is always a good idea. You max out your con, once again, always a good idea.
And you got a good solid.
You have a 20. You have a 20 AC base, not
Yeah, not including your shield or any other
and
item.
you're not worried about the weight of carrying armor. You're not getting disadvantage on stealth checks. If you're ambushed in the middle of the night, you just stand up and start wrecking shit because you don't because the negative of wearing heavier armors.
Yeah, it takes you like a good action
It's either
stand up.
it's putting yeah it's well no it's either you're wearing them and you don't actually get the rest, so you're exhausted, or you get up and you have to put on all that armor.
Which takes what, 10 minutes
It
to put
depends on
on?
the armor, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's like 10
I
minutes
think 10 is
for
the I think
heavy.
10 is like heavy, yeah. I think like
Yeah, and then a
5 minutes
minute
for
for
medium or something like that, and then but
yeah. Anyways, on to the next ability. It's reckless attack. Basically, while in your rage,
no, just at all.
no, in general, you can just decide to throw away an attack with reckless abandon, and you get to attack with. Is it your first attack?
No, it's on melee weapon attacks using strength during this turn. You have to decide when you make your first attack. So you can't swing with your first one,
Oh, okay.
and then choose on a second one. Like so,
Yeah.
it's an all or nothing type of
Yeah.
thing.
But you get advantage on your attacks,
Once again,
and
using
then
strength,
yeah, I'm assuming they're all going to be strength.
and it's melee
But
weapon attacks. Yep.
all attack rolls against you have advantage until your next turn.
But once
So
again, the ability to soak damage, assuming you're
yeah,
in melee, because I mean technically it's
if
attack
you're
rolls can
in,
be uh, spells because those are attack rolls. Anything that's an
yeah,
attack
it just
roll, but
specifically says attack.
yeah.
So
But I'm saying is your resistance is good if you're fighting giants, but if you're fighting against wizards who are a warlock who's like Eldritch Blast, pew pew, you're like ow that hurts.
yeah,
But
where
I
they
mean
have
unless you go bear, obviously, but.
bear totem is really good. I like bear
If
totem.
you go, there's one race has a resistance to psychic, so you're just like that bear totem. You're like, I have resistance to everything when I'm raging. Fuck you.
Yeah, honestly, but that's the good thing.
But
It,
that makes up for their lack of attacks. Is they're more likely to
to
hit
hit,
and more likely to crit, which
dude.
plays into their later abilities of their critical boost
If you
ability.
go half orc, you get the criticals on 19s also,
No,
dude.
it's just if you crit, you get an additional die.
Oh, what is there a race that allows you to crit on a
No,
19?
I don't think so. There are class abilities that allow you to crit.
I think I might be thinking
Yeah,
about a class ability.
like
Uh, then there's danger sense. At second level, you gain advantage on dexterity saving throws on against effects that you can see, such as traps and spells. Note how it says only traps and spells.
such as traps and spells.
Oh, I misread
Come
that.
on, motherfucker, learn to
I
read.
didn't. I didn't read such as, even though I verbally read it. I didn't like mentally read it.
Yeah, such as traps and spells.
But even then, if you're blinded, you don't get it. That's like that. That's more or less what I'm
Blinded,
getting at.
deafened, or incapacitated. Right.
Yeah.
So if
Like,
you
you have to see it coming.
once again,
Situational awareness.
perception super useful.
It's like a situational awareness type of skill, which is really
Well,
useful.
actually, right. You effects that you can see.
Yeah, so like,
But it's
if you don't see it coming,
if somebody's invisible casting a spell, you still get it because you can see the effect.
yeah, that yeah,
But if you're blinded, deafened, or incapacitated, you don't. So it's one of those things that. But no,
You
it's
have
it's
to
a good
be-
ability. I think we're once again in a game. It's like there's a fireball and the rogue is like, oh, uncanny die, or evasion, and the barbarian's like danger sense, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna eat it. Like,
yeah.
ouch.
You pass the ability, you pass the thing. You do get to see it. You still get to succeed on the dex check, but you decide to not do it anyways and eat up the entire damage for some reason.
You know what's even more disgusting too is one of those things that this is another one of those things that it plays into the, if you go like bear totem, if somebody slings a fireball at you, it's like you take half damage if you succeed, so you're likely to succeed.
So you take quarter damage
Take quarter
because
damage.
you
Yeah. So it's like if you're or if you're a tiefling, or something that already has resistance, you're like boop. So it's definitely it's a good ability.
You get ways mainly with the because I haven't
It's
went to
situational
but it's
because
good.
it's specifically. I mean, effectively, this gives you not quite proficiency in a dexterity saving throw, but sort of.
Yeah, it gives you a situational advantage.
So I mean, it's you don't get your proficiency, but you get to roll twice, which you know.
It
So
gives you something.
it gives you something. So it's like half proficiency in dexterity.
I think honestly, why I got confused is because like I haven't played the Barbarian in a long time, so I think it's like the last time I played a Barbarian, I ended up thinking that it was like just a pure save advantage. So I think that's why it's like I just realized you have
Right.
to see it. So I
Right.
think that was probably the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, get an ability score improvement at level 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19. You get extra attack at level 5, so you can attack twice when you take your action. Also at level 5, you get your movement increased by 10 feet while not wearing heavy armor. That one I actually really enjoy. Movement is so important in D&D.
Yeah, tactical movement is. That's why Tabaxi Barbarian. I mean, Tabaxi Monk would probably be a little bit more effective,
Because you get more abilities to
my Elk Totem Tabaxi Barbarian, I'm like I rage now. I have a
grab
55
mobile on
base
top of it.
movement. Yeah, and that's I didn't have mobile. Like if I had like yeah, I'm just where do you want me? Okay, BRB. Like
I I want to say I think the Centaur player class gets 40
yeah,
feet,
they
but I'm
start
not
at
sure.
40. Yeah, they start at
Yeah, I
40.
thought so. Like imagine doing that. Like you play a race that already has a faster movement speed. Like Jesus. Because the Dompier,
Especially if you're like fuck it. Well, they start at 35, but still.
yeah, I was gonna say the Dompier gets 35. So anything with a higher one, like that's still 5 feet. You get
Yeah,
like it's pretty impressive.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. But I can also climb.
yeah, that's a good thing.
I'm a
Because
tabaxi, so
I
I'm
did.
better than we're like, oh no, the enemy's at the top of this ladder. Aw, poor centaur. Like,
Yeah,
man, you
I
guys are dicks.
my last character was a Dompier that I was gonna play, which was the Warlock that I wanted, but it's like I get the spider climb. What do you get? It's like, fuck you. I get more fucking movement. I have more feet.
I did that because in the game with the current game I'm in, I'm the giant Hercules beetle that I created, but I'm a damn fear. So we were near water. So like some people went out hunting, and I actually just went and like salined off of a cliff into the water, and just sunk down and just stood there and just waited for fish to get near, and then just went like so I went fishing by just standing in the ocean and then just walked out because I have a spider climb. So I'm just like, I just walk back up and I'm like, look at all the fish I caught. Like it's just one of those like, it's not game breaking, but it's definitely ingenious use of abilities.
It's really good because at least you use it for some sort of role play. At level 7, you get Feral Instinct. Your instincts are so honed that you have advantage on initiative rolls. I almost said incentive rolls.
Yep.
If you are surprised at the beginning of combat and aren't incapacitated, you act normally on your first turn, but only if you enter rage before doing anything else on that turn. What?
Okay, so technically, so the surprise is being surprised is a condition. So
Yeah.
if you're not aware, then you have the surprise condition. So on your turn, it still goes to your initiative, and essentially, surprise condition is supposed to be your whole turn, for the condition
Oh,
to
okay.
come off.
Okay.
So
It's
essentially,
like a
you're like,
preemptive strike.
yeah. So
I got them.
you're like okay, you're like it's my turn. I'm gonna rage. That removes but you have to. You can't go. Oh, I'm gonna move over here. Then I'm gonna do this, and
You
then I'm
have
gonna
to
rage. You have to rage at the beginning, which means if you have spells or like you pretty much you can't play smart. You just gotta
You have to.
rage.
Yeah, like that's what I thought, but reading it made my brain confused
Mm-hmm.
because like reading it added so much more fluff to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that this is where my brain leads it, which is exactly what it is. Is just I couldn't for some reason verbalize it, so I got confused. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's really useful because unless you have an alert where you can't get surprised, like you still have the ability to lose
Right.
an entire round to doing stuff
And this
like
is
get
level
damage
7,
or
so you
hurt.
have 3 uses of it, and the thought is that you're most likely to be surprised. My thought is at night. when you're sleeping. So that means that you not only do you have an advantage on initiative rolls, which is really good. Um, you also can just start with a rage. So if you can, some shit's about to go down, you wake up, or you're awake or whatever or something, and you go before them, you rage. So it reminds me. I was playing in a Warhammer fantasy role playing game. My character was an elven war dancer. I got ambushed by 3 Skaven, which are like the rat people, and because of how the initiative works, I went before them, and I killed all 3 of them before they could actually go. So
Jeez.
I was ambushed by them, and I killed them before they could actually attack me.
That gives me a monomarth. Vengeance is my name because that's basically what happens in the song. Dude gets encountered by 3 people who try to kill him. They don't realize he has a sword, and he just fucking decimates them.
So it's the same thing. You're like, oh no! It reminds me of that meme. Be like, oh, better call an ambulance, but not for me.
Not for me.
Like that thing. Like that's the thing. You're like, all right. You're like,
that's perfect. That's really good.
Yeah.
At level 9. Oh, here's the thing that we were talking about that I got confused. At level 9, you roll 1 additional weapon die when determining an extra damage for critical hit with a melee attack. It increases to 2 at level 13 and 3 at level 17.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually not that bad. That really stacks very well, meaning that you got even further DPS going down the fucking wall.
Right.
Down the
That's
road.
like you're saying. Like if you're well, I mean, you don't watch Dimension 20, which you should.
No, I don't.
I'm
trying to finish Critical Role before I get into other ones because I really do want to start it. Harley watches it, so it's like
because the one is Fantasy High. One of the characters is a half-orc barbarian, and there's one fight where I think he swings 3 times and gets 2 crits in the fight.
Jeez.
Yeah. Because I think he's like the berserker, so he gets his frenzy. So he has his 2 swings normally, like crits. I think he misses, or maybe he hits and does just like normal damage, and then on his frenzy attack he gets another crit. So he just does disgusting points of damage. Yeah, it's one of those things, and then that's another one of those builds that you can do. That if you are a, oh no, you'd have to be a half orc for that to work, but you take 17 levels of barbarian, 3 levels of rogue just to get the assassin automatic critical.
Jesus.
So
just trying to all this shit.
Yeah, and so then that's it's automatic critical. So you're swinging 3 times in a round, and all 3 hits are with advantage, and you have advantage on initiative rolls, like. So you're likely to go first, and then you just swing. I mean, you're not going to get sneak attack because you're not using, but you're like, yup, eat it, if it's a great axe like most people use, then that's 3 additional dice, so that's 4d12, 5d12 before critical hits per hit, so that's 30d12 in one round. If
let's hope that you roll decently.
Right, and that's assuming that there's no magical benefits on your axe. So yeah,
imagine that you have some sort of element and stuff.
Right, like one of the things that does like an additional d6 or Vorpal. Although Vorpal's more anyway, but yeah, it's one of those things that it can get disgusting.
Yeah, we have Relentless Rage at level 11. If you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging, you have to make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw, and if you pass, you hit 1 HP instead. But every time you use this before you take a long rest, or a short or a long rest, the DC goes up by 5. So 15, 20, 25, 30, and I guarantee most people aren't going to be hitting 40s in their normal die rolls until later on. So, that you use this, twice, and then you're already...
Well, you're level 11. Constitution is your...
Second or first.
I would say Constitution for a barbarian is like a paladin's charisma. It's like it's your primary stat.
Yeah.
So it's your Constitution is your highest, is your second highest, if not on par with your highest stat.
So what is this? Proficiency is not involved. So say you roll and your Constitution is a 5. You pretty well have an almost guaranteed to at least be hitting tens at any given moment, plus any magic things.
And once
And if
again,
I'm
we're discussing orcs, half orc. You use your ability, so you just you don't even have to. And it's each time you use this feature.
yeah,
So I don't remember. Now I'm gonna look to see how half orc works again. I don't know if that's once
it's
per day.
similar. Once you can choose to
I
go
think that might
to
be
a 1 HP if you go down.
finish a long rest. Okay, so it's once per long rest, but yeah, I mean, it's a good feature.
Still really good. You don't have
Yeah.
to use this the first time. You can use this twice right off the bat.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's honestly still really good. Like if you can test your luck and get this at like just twice.
You know what's even better? I would even allow this because in theory, you have to be raging, so that's the specific thing.
Yeah.
You roll it, you succeed, cool. The next time you roll it, you fail, you use your half orc ability.
Yeah.
So I would say that you could, essentially, you're like, this is your rage, like it's your rage keeping you up, and then it fails, but your orc tenacity is able to keep you up, and then maybe the third time you succeed again. So like you've used it 3 times, or you've rolled 3 times,
But you've only used it twice, and it's like, damn.
And I would count that using this feature. If you fail, you're not using the feature because you're.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was thinking.
So yeah, so technically the second time, like in that scenario, it's DC 10, and then the second one's DC 15. But you fail, but you use your orc ability. Then the third time is also DC 15 because you didn't actually succeed in using the feature.
Yeah, it does state in the book. It doesn't necessarily state it has to pass. It just says if you do use it. But I'm on your case. Like, it doesn't make sense to say that you used it if you're on, like, if you do fall unconscious, because then you kind of, unless you're magically resurrected, health, the health potions included into magic, excuse me, like, it's very unlikely that you're going to be really brought back. So, like, unless someone has a medic feat, which I think stabilizes you and can bring you to 1 HP. Almost no one uses that, though. But yeah, like it's got potential to really be useful, mainly if you're like trying to like kind of stat whore and do stuff like that. Like you can really do pretty good.
Right.
Number 15. Level 15, you get rage so fierce it only ends if you get knocked unconscious. Or if you choose to end it.
So that means you can rage for longer than a minute.
Yeah, meaning that, you don't necessarily have to not finish raging. Also note how it says that even if you're raging, you don't have disadvantage on any sort of checks dealing with persuasion or anything.
Correct. Yeah, no, yeah, it's not.
Like, I completely...
They took out a lot, because in third edition, there was a lot of negatives. Because, like, you have there was, like, a +4 to strength, +4 to con, but, like, a -2 to your armor class. Like, there were negatives to raging in third edition. So they took out the negatives. They added some more positives, but it's like, I don't know, it's
like I kind of would figure, if you're raging, and like most people who are barbarians kind of follow the barbarian is kind of stupid type of trope. Yeah, like they're not intelligent. I kind of just realized, you could theoretically continuously be raging and you're seething with that rage and you're just like having a casual conversation.
Right. That's my secret captain. I'm always angry.
Yeah. But that's actually quite impressive. Like, I just thought of that. At level 18, Indomitable Might. If your total strength check is less than your strength score, you can use that score in place of your total. Huh.
Yeah, so in theory, you have a 20 strength. Actually, and at level 20, you theoretically have a 24 strength.
Yeah.
So
imagine
on your athletics checks, you always get. I mean, it's not as useful as some of them because I think athletics is like the only strength check, so it's actually not that useful.
Yeah, it is. I had a alternative character sheet.
I guess it depends on that depends on if I don't know if there's an errata about that or not. Whether or not a strength check, because it's not. It doesn't say like strength ability check.
It just says if your strength check is less than your strength score. So it has to be a check, I'm assuming. Also, like some people
Well,
in
my thought is it would saving throws count?
it says check specifically. I would allow it, but again, I guess it's kind of up to
I mean,
DM.
that's the fact that it's like it's that's not even as good as the like fighters get one where they get like they get a 10. I guess I mean it's you're like, oh, I'm gonna kick down that door. You don't even have to roll technically.
Yeah,
Like I'm gonna grab this guy. Okay, well the GM can roll, and then if they decide that you should roll because it's higher than a 24, all right,
yeah.
roll. But like you're like, my minimum is a 24 at level 20. So should I roll or like, it is one of those like it removes the need for rolling certain things.
Also, like if
Or
you
the
decide,
counter to that is if somebody tries to grapple you, you don't even have to roll.
yeah, you already break it.
Yeah, somebody
Your
tried
DC
like
is higher than theirs.
yeah, yeah. Your DC is whatever your strength score is. If they succeed, then you can roll.
Imagine like going off of this, like it says strength checks, like DMs who allow intimidation with strength instead of charisma.
Right.
You could use that. Like that's still really impressive. Like situational stuff. Like you can really use this to your advantage in multiple ways. Like make sure that strength is maxed out. You got some good advice, like really good ability once you hit 18th level.
I mean, it's not as groundbreaking as pretty much all of their other abilities, but
It's still pretty good because like I guess
I think it's kind of a give me. It's like we had to give him something at 18, so we'll give him this type of thing.
oh no, I get that.
It is not a bad ability, but it's once again it's situational. It may come in handy, it might not. It really depends, but it's there's no real negative to having it. It's not like, oh cool, this is a useless ability. It's a good ability. It's just not top tier.
Yeah, it's not like always the best, but at level 20, like you were saying earlier, you get a +4 to your strength and to your constitution maximums. Or it increases, and now the maximum is up to 24. So you get that added automatically.
Which is nasty.
Yeah, that is nasty, actually.
Because I mean that's a +7. So that means that you're at level 20. If we're going that 5 dex, 7 con, you have a base unarmed defense of 22 without a shield. Yeah. Which
you're beating the fuck out of people.
We're gonna catch these hands.
These hands are rated E for everyone.
Right. That's what my monk would say. These hands are rated E for everyone.
What you gonna do, Bahamut?
What? Talk shit, get hit, Bahamut. What? Boom.
We're all dragons here.
We're all dragons here. Yeah, and we're not. I mean, we could go. There's not a whole ton of barbarian subclasses, but we could focus on subclasses later if we care.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be better.
Because I mean, Berserker is okay. It's kind of middle of the road. Primal, the Path of the Totem Warrior I think is pretty cool.
I like that one. That's the only class of barbarian I've ever played, actually.
I think that the one that Ashley plays in campaign 2.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I just forgot what it was.
That one is really cool. Like, actually Xanathars. Like, I think all of the ones in Xanathars are pretty nifty because there's like
the ones in Xanathars.
The Tempest, really almost the Tempest one, is pretty nifty. That's situational. That's kind of nifty. The bat like the Frenzied Berserker, the one that you're just like, yeah, if rezzing me is free. Once again, that's one of those things that in a game where magic isn't common, you're like, yeah, we're gonna cast, Revivify on our barbarian. Like that's like, oh, I could just be reckless. Like because I'll as long as somebody has Revivify. Yeah, I mean there's Barbarian isn't a nuanced class. No. It's not designed for nuance. It is exactly what it is. It's like, it's, ignoring all of the role playing of, you could be like, my Barbarian wasn't just like, I'm so angry. It very much was like that, like combat focus, like, okay, like like adrenaline kicking in, and I just have hyper focused type of
I
thing.
imagine the breakdown from Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes, like how he's analyzing someone before they even attack, type of thing.
Right,
So like that combat focus.
or like the one where that guy takes like the drug or whatever, and it like makes his brain function better.
I know what you're talking about.
It had Bradley Cooper in the movie, and then there was the TV show.
I've never seen it.
But yeah, it's that kind of thing. Like I'm sure I've seen in other. I want to say the Dragon Age games. I think there's like a combat focus type of ability. Like, but it's one of those things you're like.
Yeah, it like slows down.
So you're like your body kind of kicks in because of your. It's really, I mean, it makes sense because they live in the wilderness, so they're savage, primal. But it is that combat, your survival instinct kicks in, and it only processes what it needs to process, and you're just
ignoring the rest.
Kind of like compartmentalization.
Yeah.
So it's rage. It's it could be the boiling, frothing at the mouth, frenzy berserker, but it could be just like a focused, it could be John Wick.
Oh my god, that's like super fucking useful. Like in terms of a comparison, like John Wick really, yeah.
Like the first fight in the John Wick movie definitely is his initial is a rage. That I would argue that's a rage, like because he's just hyper focused on combat, and he's aware, his awareness, and I mean he's probably more of a fighter considering, but the analogy in my scenario works. Although at that point they argued because he's angry because they killed his dog, he gained at least one level of Barbarian.
I would say because rage.
Right.
Rage, the resistance to like him. He is walking around after getting shot with some pretty high calibers. He has something going on.
Well, he's also got the bulletproof suit.
Yeah,
I know.
Damage. It hurts.
I know. I mean, I'm aware. I've never happened to me, so I don't actually.
I've never been shot with it either, but like I've been tased, and that hurts.
All right, motherfucker. If I could stand up after getting thrown out of a car, I don't want to hear it.
Never had that happen. Jesus.
Yeah. Then somebody's like, "Yeah, no, lay down." I was like, "Yeah, okay, that's a good idea." And then I found out later it's like shock. I'm like, "Oh yeah, shock's a bad thing. Don't stand up." But yeah, that's it could be. I'm sure there are a million examples of rage, of frothing at the mouth rage, but John Wick in the kind of that combat focus is another example. And there's and it doesn't have to be, and and it's ferocity. So it's I like how it's fight with primal ferocity.
Yeah, but
because it's you could be like a gorilla, if we're going based on primates or animals. There's a gorilla who just kind of just bludgeons things, but you could also be like I don't know, chimpanzees or something, like with the raging and they're like hopping around, all over the place. Like it doesn't have to be. Or I saw online, I think I sent it. It's a meme of like, it doesn't have to be anger. It's just like an enhanced emotion. So it's like you don't have to be angry. You could just be happy. You're just like.
You really do kill someone with kindness.
It's
you're
just so happy. Like it doesn't have to be like you're like I'm so angry. It's like you just get depressed. You're like why are you so depressed? It's like because I have to end somebody's life. And you're just like, but it's same kind of like it doesn't have to be narrowed down to just frothing at the mouth.
I just imagine like the followers of Nurgle in 40K. We're not angry with you. You were just ignorant to the blessings of Papa Nurgle.
Well, and then we go with Slaanesh, and that's just as bad. The rage of Slaanesh.
I actually enjoy Nurgle as a demon prince or whatever the fuck you want to call him. God, he's a fucking demon god or whatever.
We're not gonna. Let's not delve too much into Warhammer.
I don't know 40K that much.
Let's keep it that way. Yeah, they are. They really are. I mean, it's. There are some classes that, I mean, you have to remember stuff. Every class you have to remember things. So if you're a beginner, every class has something that you're gonna have to remember. So it's not like
Ooh.
people are like, oh, if you want something simple, but you have to remember a couple of things, barbarian or fighter
It's streamlined.
or rogue.
It's
Rogue
really
is good too, just because you have to remember their sneak attack, and so it's like those are the ones that are kind of like it's not wizard where you have to be like, oh shit, I have to.
I have all these spells.
I have all
my
these spells,
slot.
and then I have now I have to spell slots, and like it's not that you can't do it if you want to do it, it's entirely feasible. But
It's just
but sometimes you're like, I just want to show up and I just want to hit things with an axe, and you're like, I got 2 classes for you. Which do you want to be? Do you want to be
you want to be a fighter? Or do you want to be a
barbarian? Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's a good class. I mean, especially because you can tank, you deal damage. I mean, you don't deal. I mean, think about it. Like, it's one of those things that. Have you ever seen Seven Deadly Sins?
The anime?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
Fuck. Okay, there's like a 1-episode tournament thing, so that just that's just what I'm thinking of. Is like one of those things that like as long as there's no out of bounds type of thing, like that's where they're like, I rage, I grab you, I jump off a cliff, like I climb back up, I'm the only one, like I'm still alive. Like it's just one of those things like you could use your abilities in like the most dramatic ways, like
you really could.
or you're on top of like one of the ideas I had is like. I think cause with the barbarian that I was playing, the Dwarger barbarian, like maybe I'm on top of a tower and everybody else at the bottom of a tower or something, and be like, all right, I just rage and then just jump off. Like,
You have PhD flopper.
with the amount of like the ability to shrug off falling damage, not shrug off, but to tank falling
Resist
damage.
it.
Yeah, is a lot. The ability to just stand there and get hit, like the fighter's doing the damage, you're doing damage. But you're taking the damage. The fighter's like, yeah, I'm doing this and that over here and doing these great things, and I'm a tactical. Fighter's more tactical. Barbarian's more just, I get in there and I'm a distraction. Like you don't want to, you can't ignore, especially when you're like, oh, everybody has advantage against me. People are gonna be like, let's attack that guy. We have advantage. So like it's a good way of drawing aggro. Like I recklessly attack, which means if you're like you cut off somebody's head, you're like. Next motherfucker, and they're like, oh shit, like he's a threat. Yeah. So even if the fighter's doing more damage, the barbarian's just like sitting over there just fucking shit up. You're like, wait, why are we not attacking him? He's obviously a threat. Like, so
trust me,
they have a lot of like danger sense is specific. Fast movement is useful once again because you're just like, let's get in there, let's get into this fight. Feral instincts, you go first. You're like, I have advantage. Surprise, call an ambulance for you. Like, there's brutal critical is when it gets disgusting. Like,
ugh.
Relentless rage, persistent rage. Like they have a lot. Like that's what I'm saying is that it feels like indomitable might with everything else they have. It's like, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. Like it's like it's not a bad ability. It's a solid ability. It's a solid middle tier ability that is situational, but with everything else, it seems underwhelming. But still, it's useful. And then, then it gets into what subclass you decide to use.
I agree.
It's a good class.
It is. And personally, I think Paladin was my first starting class, but Barbarian would have been easier because, like, I really enjoy the martial stuff. And to be honest, like, I did not use my spells except for Cure Wounds, like, other than Smite. Like, that's the thing, like, as someone who starts and tries to help people get into D&D, I ask them, do you want to be a martial class or do you want to be a spellcaster? Spellcasters have a lot more to deal with it because you have spell slots to worry about and try to figure out what spells, how many spells you're allowed to have and all that jazz. And a lot of people are typically like, what is easier? And I say martial.
Right, yeah.
Because it's
Barbarian,
cut and dry. Yeah. It's exactly that. Like, you don't have to worry about the nuances of, oh, I have this level of one spell slot and I have to worry about these spells that I have to switch out for based off the event, and now say cleric, like, you have all your spells and it's like, all right, you just have to worry about your spell slots and, you can kind of.
You still have to prep your spells for the day, but yeah, you're like, which one do I want today? Like but I think you brought it up at some point. The issue that I have isn't even with barbarians. It's with people playing barbarians. It's like the same issue I have with people who play bards, generally.
They want to fuck everything?
People play bards as the obnoxious, like, people... Essentially, people saw the Road to El Dorado and they're like, "That's a bard," and then they never change their opinion. Like that's it. That's as far as they got, and that's a bard. That's it. That's all bards, and so it's kind of like the same thing with barbarians. They're just like, oh, barbarians. Especially, I mean, Travis at least had a justification that Grog had a 6 intelligence or a 5 intelligence or whatever. Like he had a
6
super low intelligence. Like he had a justification for being
even then, like
being a stupid barbarian.
He still, even with that 6 intelligence, came up with some really smart.
Well, that's
ideas.
the thing is being that's the. I think my brother brought up, or there was a video where it's like having a low intelligence doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means it takes you longer to get to it takes you longer to get to the whatever the goal is intellectually. So my character, that, my fighter had like a 10 or 11. I was like, I don't know, I only have a 10 or 11. I'm like, so it takes me a little bit longer to get there. Whereas I probably have, as a person, have more than a 10 or 11. But playing a wizard, you have a 20, and I'm like, oh yes, this thing, yes, I got there already. I've already crafted a wonderful so I think people playing barbarians as I think people fall into the tropes. Like people fall into the bard trope, people fall into the barbarian trope, which my barbarian, and in no way am I I think I'm no, I think I am better than a lot of people. Because I play my characters as people. I don't play them as me playing a character. I play them as I wasn't Kalvin playing Chips Tooth on Chainmail. I was Chips Tooth on Chainmail. When that game starts, I am Chips Tooth on Chainmail.
I have that issue where I play a character.
And I think there's a difference between being stupid and being ignorant. Because I've played a couple of characters. It's actually a lot of fun to play an ignorant character. Not obviously not like a willfully ignorant, like racist ignorant, just like ignorant.
Like they don't know better.
That's the funny thing is if you call somebody ignorant and then they get offended, they're like, well, have you ever looked up the word? Do you know what the word means? It means lacking knowledge.
It's just
like everybody's technically ignorant.
People get offended by it because it's
an insult. It's people take it as an insult to their intelligence. But I mean, it is and it isn't. But I played Chips as ignorant because he's not from Faerun. He's from Maztica, so he doesn't know anything. Or playing Chowda. He's from the ocean. He's not from land. So people are like, oh, yes, watch out, there's a half-orc. I'm like, yes. What's a half-orc? Like, it's a lot of fun because I get to play, it's playing an ignorant character is a lot of fun as a person who knows too much. Because then I can play the characters and be like, yes, okay, what is that? And I'm not like, yes, I know all about these things. I'm super smart. I know all the things. Like, going from my wizard who literally wrote reports on, Minotaurs, Giants, Avernus, to going to a character who's like, yes, what is mead? You don't know things. You're like, what's that thing? That's a rabbit. What the fuck is a rabbit? It's just, you're going, you're like, I don't know what that thing is, but I'm going to hit it. So it's a lot of fun. So I think people play it too much as these stupid. I'm a grog. I'm dumb. I don't know nothing.
They kind of went into the movie trope also of they're dumb meatheads.
Exactly.
And I can see where it can be fun, but it's almost every barbarian I've ever seen, or seen. I've played barbarians as that. I fall into that trope, but I haven't played one since that wasn't A, Jazalt, or B, that I wanted to implement that focus. Because whenever I'm Jazalt, I focus on the abilities of the rage and the barbarian, but that's not the forefront that you come off as them on. And I implement the focus aspect into it instead of the primal savageness that they're feralness, I guess, that they're going for. But it's not nuance as much,
Right.
So if I were to play a singular class, I'd want to focus specifically on I'm thinking tactically and trying to benefit my party and myself. And maybe they're not intelligent, but what they know in terms of combat is a lot of intelligence,
Exactly,
and that's where it goes into stuff. So maybe they just don't hold into what is deemed as useful knowledge, but when it comes to fighting in survival, they are the person you want to go to.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely one of those. A lot of classes fall into a lot like there's tropes that a lot of classes fall into, and people play them
Rogues
as
are dark and edgy.
right, which is funny because I mean I don't know if I've ever played an edgy, dark and edgy rogue like oh my existence is pain. Ugh.
I just wanted to make a rogue who just wanted to be a rogue just for the fuck of it. Like he has a great life. He's just like, yeah, I just want to steal shit. I like being a fucking asshole. Like I like making those. It's like, why are you a bad person? Because I'm bored.
I was in a game where I was playing. I think I was a fighter, and I used two long swords, or maybe they were great swords. I don't remember. And one was like chaotic. It was weird. Like they were magical swords, and if like somebody of the opposite or a different alignment touched it, they would take damage. And I like the character was like a prince, and then my best friend, one of my best friends, was playing like he was playing a rogue or whatever, and like we did some stuff, and at some point my character died in a fight or whatever, but he survived, and so he actually specifically dug my character like a grave and put both of the swords on top of him, and then covered him up.
Oh wow.
He's like it was the reasoning was that both of the swords belong to him, so it makes sense for him to be buried with them. But also, if somebody tries to rob his grave, the swords are like the people who rob graves are the people who can't touch those swords. Essentially, like no, chaotic and evil or something like that type of thing. So, and his character was like a rogue. So it's just one of those things that like it's I don't know you
no, I get
it. It's the amount of people that play into the tropes, which is fine, but it's way more fun to play out of the trope. Like playing an intelligent barbarian. You know how much more terrifying that would be? Like they're scary. It's scary when it's this mindless monster coming at you, but like Doomsday is terrifying, but Darkseid is scarier.
Yeah, because here's the thing. There's nothing more scary than a person who can hurt you, has the ability to hurt you, but is trying to avoid it.
Right.
And then will absolutely destroy you with no remorse because they decided to try diplomacy first. That's how I kind of viewed that. Like, it's like
you can predict if it's a mindless monster, you can predict what it's gonna do. If it's a bestial, you can predict what it's gonna do. If they're intelligent, you have no fucking idea.
Exactly.
That's the type of it's a bear. Bear's just gonna maul the shit out of you. So a barbarian is just gonna hack into you. But apparently, my barbarian is gonna grab you, jump off a cliff, like it's one of the it's one of those things that so it's they're. I think people appreciate them as much as they deserve to be appreciated. I don't think that they're an underappreciated class, but I think people pigeonhole a lot of things. I think people have pigeonholed barbarians into a very specific niche as far as what they are and how they're role played out. And I think that in itself is really the only issue I have. And so it's not even an issue with the class because I think it's
just people.
It's a very simple class. They do what they do. So, like Mudvayne said, do what you do. Anyway, yeah. Do what you do.
Anyways, that was a long rant.
Yeah. So, you started this video. You get to end the video.
I didn't even think about it. I was like kind of sitting here off like thinking about how long that rant was, and I'm trying to figure out. Anyways, that was the Barbarian class. My name is Brandon.
My name is Kalvin.
See you guys in the next video.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And now you get to listen to the outro song. And that's the outro song. Yeah.